Welcome, everybody. Dr. James Beck, Sports Card Insights here with Rich Klein. We're going to talk about trade nights or even trade evenings. Rich has some experiences you want to share. I want to chime in. But first, thanks sponsors, Topps Panini Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins& Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentications. Tell me about your latest experience, Rich, and why I should come to one of these, and what should I bring?
There's a couple things. As I said, my opinion has evolved. I am actually now a fan of stores. Like many of the triple cards in Texas are going to be doing trade nights. I know the Beast has done trade nights, which is affiliated with Triple. I think for a store, doing a trade night is a really good idea. It brings extra people into the store. They have a chance of selling product. They have a chance of selling supplies. The way the triple cards are set up, it's really ideal for trade nights.
Like I said, it's not trade midnight.
No,
this is like more of an evening thing, what you were saying, which is way more palatable to me to have a trade night that starts at 9 o'clock. It's not past my bedtime, but still it can get pretty late. So it's more civilized. So this is what Triple is doing now?
Triple, at least the one right by my house, on the one on February 7th, is 5 to 7. It goes to 7:30. It's not a big deal, but it's running the last couple hours they're open, which to me is a great thing because maybe they've looked at, okay, our business isn't as good during those 2 hours. They have everything has point of sale, so they can analyze when they're doing business. It gives people a chance to do this. And so I'm in favor. What I'm evolving to is I think more stores should be looking into trade nights, but I think less shows should be looking into trade nights unless you do it the way the NSCC does it, which is you have it in the location. You have people wearing the wristbands or whatever, you pay to enter. Everybody has skin in the game. Like a lot of the ways Kyle does it, and I know it's very crowded, very successful, but it's a little different because there are a lot of, frankly, freeloaders coming into trade night. They're not paying to park. We're paying to park when we go to the Dallas Card Show. The people who are charging for parking are gone. So they're not paying to park. They're not paying for a table. They're not paying for anything. It's a little more loosey. As a business person, I'm thinking, why aren't I being able to maximize the dollars coming in from people like that as well?
It's a different crowd. And I think they have a different, not personality, but a different intensity. If somebody comes to a trade night after Kyle's show, they're there very intentionally and I think pretty intense. It's like a party. It's not like going to a card show where you're paying admission, you're walking around. No, this is very free form and very non-linear. You just roam around. Some people like the lack of structure and the lack of the initial upfront cost. Now, they still had to drive there.
But I'm paying extra. I'm paying the parking fee to go in. I'm going to use the term, I'm paying the admission fee to go into the show. Yes, I'm not seeing all 700 tables at a trade night, but I can see some tables. And I can see some people with stuff in the hallway. And I'm not paying to see that. That's where I think as a promoter, I like what the NSCC is doing better.
I know it's not necessarily either or, but it would just seem to me, from my perspective, I don't want to go to the trade night instead of the card show because the card show has an organization and a structure where I know where I'm going to go. I know the kind of deals I'm going to do, and I'm successful in that. I'm on mission. But I think a lot of people don't want that. They want to come in after hours and roam around and not pay an admission. They're doing different kinds of buying and trading.
You and I think alike. I know what tables I'm going to go to at the Dallas Card Show, unless I accidentally find a table. And that has happened. I've accidentally found a table, and a couple of shows ago, I bought a ton. Nice family. But at this point, unless I accidentally stumble onto something, or somebody does a guest appearance, like the person you bought hockey cards from at the show who doesn't always set up with his dollar boxes, I have which tables I'm going to go to. I'll walk around and sit with other of my friends. And I know which tables I'm going to go visit. And you're the same way. We know which tables we're going to go see.
But we're not price sensitive in the sense that if you said, you know what, it costs $15 to get in the card show. And if it costs $15 to get in the trade night, or even more, or whether it's free or $15, I still want to go to the card show. My thought is that some of the people that go on the trade night, they would prefer the trade night, even if the trade night is the one that costs, if getting in the show was free and the trade night costs, they still want that ambiance, I think. They're more night owls.
I
That's
think
why
you used to be a night owl.
I used to be, but I'm reformed. Just saying the 5 to 7, I'm intrigued about the 5 to 7 that Lawrence seems to be instituting. He's got a lot of good business instincts, is going to be the best of both worlds, where he gets some benefit of the organization within his store, and you have increased traffic, and there's some great camaraderie. Everybody's there. My point is, I don't think it's competition to the structure of a card show with 700 dealers and tables.
No, it's not. But that's why I'm saying, but as a store owner, I probably should have been doing trade nights way back in the day if you had room in your store for it, because you would have seen interesting things walk in. You would have loved trade nights, I suspect, when you had first base back when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
The problem was there weren't enough collectors, although they probably would have come.
Yeah.
Trading back in those days was pretty low. People weren't looking up comps or anything. If the price guide was out there, they could do that, but they weren't 1-for-1 trades as much as they were, I got these cards, you got these cards. So is most of trade night, you feel like it's 1-for-1s, or
I think trade
a
night
smaller group
and selling too. There is some trading. I think trade night's really a term, but I think it's really more a lot of people buy and sell.
What are they bringing, a monster box?
They're bringing their Pelican case.
I think that's what it is. I think it's graded or higher end raw cards. In fact, it really ought to be graded. A lot more safety in that.
And there are some dealers in the Starlight room. They open about half the Starlight room. So some dealers are just selling their normal stuff as well.
That's probably where that idea came from, is that even if you do have some organized tables or you have a store with showcases, there's still a way to do the best of both worlds, to allow, that's not kosher. If I was in a store and you were in the store and it was Lawrence's store or Mike Fruitman's store or Rob Barris's store, and you were going to sell some cards to the dealer, to the card shop, and I said, hey, I'm interested in those, sell them to me, I'd get kicked out. Same thing at a card show. The dealers are the ones supposed to be making the sales, and the C2C aspect is frowned upon. We've talked about that.
Yeah, the funniest thing is this actually happened in Triple, but it was a harmless C2C transaction because I gave the person stuff. You had given me some books. Then I realized we're not going to have prizes for a while. When I went into Triple, when they still had the Wall of Commons in Plano, I ran into somebody I knew was a book guy. And I called him to my car and said, come to me, come out with me. And then I went to apologize and said, I'm sorry, I did that. But I was giving him 15 books. Really? Yeah. Would you like to see the books? But they brought in one book. Okay, that's fine. So
if it had been cards,
if it was cards, it was different, but it was books. And it was like, that's fine. Don't worry about it. That's fine.
On the other hand, on these trade nights, are there any newbies coming to that?
Yes, I think there are newbies. There are people you don't normally see. I usually know about 2 or 3 or 4 people there, and I'll chat with them. To me, it's also a learning experience, just seeing what's going on that part of the world.
They had to know about it enough to show up.
Yeah.
That maybe their curiosity, but somebody had to tell them, or they had to find out about it.
I put it into my email, which you received.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
And I put it into my email, especially for Triple. Triple has given us a lot of donations over the years, and I'm very appreciative of that. I try to help them whenever they're doing a trade night, or if they're doing one of these Tops hobby rip nights, and not just Triple, but my friend Ryan at RJ Dukes, I will say something about as well. Then if Tops has a list, Masons are nice people. And I'll post the link to the list of everybody locally who's doing trade nights or doing the hobby rip nights. But in this case, it's a specific. I know when they're doing it. I know what the store is. I love the hours personally, like you, 5 to 7.
I think that sounds good.
That's a winner for me because I'm not up all night. I've been to some of the local store trade nights that go to 10 o'clock. I'm exhausted when I get home. Not my bedtime when I'm leaving.
When you're talking about the national trade night and the proximity and stuff, like, you're mainly referring to Cleveland as
correct. What they did in Cleveland last year is correct.
No, I know, but that was the basement, or it was on a different floor. It was very busy and accessible throughout the whole day.
Yeah.
You couldn't go upstairs unless you had a ticket, right?
You still had to pay to get in. To me, that's the key. As a show promoter, you may not have to pay as much because you're not getting the 700 tables, but you still should pay something to have some skin in the game.
That's why they had the escalators. I thought they were patrolling the escalators and the elevators, that you could go up but not down, or go down but not up.
Correct.
For some of the
I was not there, you were, but as I said, I'm evolving in my position and I approve of what they're doing on trade night.
But in Chicago, there's going to be a trade night in every one of the adjacent hotels, of which there are 5 or 6 of them that are within 500 yards.
I know a couple of years ago they tried to shut down almost all the trade nights. I don't know if that's legal,
I
but
don't think it was successful.
I don't think it was successful. I know the hotel I stayed at 2 years ago, they had trade night every night there, but it wasn't so far away, but it was far enough off the main drag. They weren't coming to that hotel to check. I'd come in with my bag, and I remember one guy asking me, "Oh, I got to see what's in there." And I said, "You really want to see dime cards?" "Yes." Then after about 5 cards, he goes, "You are really serious? These are dime cards." I said, "I wasn't doing this to avoid these for you. Believe me, I would have been happy to have cards to flip for you. These are really dime cards."
If we did a survey, first of all, they do surveys sometimes at the shows and ask, how did you find out about the show? You know what I put? I put RK. But if you found out about the National or any big show and you found out there was a trade night there really are people who would prefer to go to the trade night, I think, regardless of the cost. They'd like the enthusiasm and the lack of structure. I'm not that way, but I think they'll be wandering around and just maybe find something really interesting and trade for it or buy it. Do you have that sense? I just think it's not my demographic, but
if people greet me by name and say, "Hi, Rich," when I'm doing the synagogue show, I don't ask them how they found out about it. But if I don't know them, then I ask, "Oh, by the way, how did you find out?" And I get an interesting mishmash. And I always stress to people in the synagogue, we need to be looking at wider audience. I use a lot of the arguments we used to have at Beckett. We need to be looking outside the insular Jewish community whenever possible. We need to be looking at the wider audience. You don't know how often I stress that. They're probably sick of me stressing it, but that's okay.
It's that just increasing awareness, and it's a positive event.
Yeah, and it works well. And almost everything else we do has to have an RSVP. And I try to explain, this event I can't do RSVPs for. We just have the security guy at the door and we hope for the best.
Okay. What's the negative of the trade nights? Is Kyle or Lawrence, are they having to hire extra security? Because it's a different and probably bigger crowd than would normally be there from 5 to 7 or 9 to midnight.
I know.
What are the liabilities?
I don't know if Kyle is hiring extra people. I know a lot of his staff is obviously there during trade nights. Also, Lawrence has a deep enough staff at almost every store. And there are times like when they did the Secret Santa exchange, he could say, "You work at this store, go to North Dallas for a Secret Santa night, or go to Rowlett."
Yeah.
So you can have people go to the various stores. So I don't think Lawrence has to hire anybody. He's got a lot of employees. He can just redeploy a couple of them for 2 hours.
So then it's win-win for him. Even though there's a lot of activity that he's not getting a cut of, there's enough activity where he is getting his retail margin.
And plus, as I said, there's supplies, there's wax you can buy. They'll have their singles out. Maybe you see something in the showcase you like. There's a lot of positives to doing a trade night for a store. Doesn't necessarily exist for a promoter. Like when I did one of Kyle's shows, DFW Airport, I was set up and I was leaving at 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. There were like 2 guys already set up outside the show with tables. They had their whole setup ready to go. And these people aren't paying to come in the door. They're not paying for a table. And they know it's a 2-day show, so they'll know there'll be some people coming for a trade night. That's what I mean by taking money out of the promoter's pocket.
Except that it may not have ever gone into the. It's
true, but these people are, I'm going to use the word mooching. I'm sure there's a better word than that.
But they're not doing anything illegal.
No, there's nothing illegal, but they're doing a draft off the show already.
They're drafting off.
In terms of draft. When we had the industry summit here in 2018, I set up my show to pre-draft off the industry summit, and I got maybe 15 people who were coming for the industry summit to come to my show that day. And I had dealers tell me it was like the best Sunday they've ever had at a show. I said, "You got people coming from out of town with money." They were all like, "Yeah, cool. I had a great day." I said, "Yeah." Okay,
last thoughts about the trade night thing. When I did buying trips in a hotel and took out a room, took out ads, I had poachers occasionally, and that was really frustrating. So I take your point on that. I don't know that it was illegal, just the hotel should police it. If Kyle didn't want that activity, he should say hotel.
He used to
he wants it. But I'm saying if he didn't.
So don't get me wrong.
They shouldn't be allowed to set up on the sidewalk outside of Lawrence's store. And that would be the landlord.
I remember in the 70s and early 80s, like in New Jersey, some promoters would run what we'll call fake shows. They'd get a hotel, or they'd say they're going to be at a hotel. And as people came in, if they had anything to buy, there was no show, but then they'd be there ready to buy anything.
Okay, one last thing here, because now you've jogged my memory about this, but Fort Washington, the Motor Lodge, there were guys that are pretty famous in the hobby that did not necessarily have tables, but they had their room down the hall, and they would have cards spread out on the second bed or whatever, and you could go in there by appointment and make deals. And these were some high-end guys. Now, I don't know what their security was, but I don't know that was, again, nothing illegal, and not everybody went there, but if they found somebody, they'd say, hey, come on, I'm in room 317. I've got a lot of extra stuff there, and buy, sell, trade, whatever.